Jaya Bharagosati. Jaya Sri Tosina, Sri Tosina, Sri Tosina, Jaya Sri Tosina. Jaya Nisingate, Jaya Nisingate, Nisingate, Jaya Nisingate. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Guru Parampara ki jai, Kantarat Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Okay. So reading from Srimad Prabhupada Limamrita, text chapter entitled Preaching to America, Part 2. Ramananda Swami was reading about Krishna's rescuing his beloved Rukmini when suddenly Srila Prabhupada interrupted and said that when they had been escaping on Krishna's chariot and the other princes had been attacking, Rukmini had taken the reins and had driven the chariot. Krishna had then taken his bow and arrows and had defeated his opponents. The devotees were amazed. Many of them were keen students of Krishna book, and nowhere was that particular detail mentioned. Never before had any of them heard of Rukmini's taking the reins, nor had they ever thought of her in that way. But Prabhupada assured them that she had fearlessly driven Krishna's chariot during the fight. When Prabhupada was speaking, Dayananda, the Gurukul headmaster, stretched out his leg to find a more comfortable position, and Prabhupada turned to him and said sternly, "Do not put your feet near Tulsi. She is a pure devotee." When Ramananda read a prayer in the Krishna book describing Krishna as the creator of the material elements, Prabhupada spoke up. "If we do not accept that Krishna made the sky," he challenged, "then who made it?" It's okay to... Yeah, is it okay to have the computer so I can... Do they see the screen? Okay, so it's... I was thinking maybe turning it the other way. Okay, no problem. If we do not accept that Krishna made the sky, he challenged, then who made it? The blue of the Texas sky was now fading into twilight, and guests and devotees alike looked up the sky and then back at Prabhupada. According to Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada said, Krishna made the sky. Bhumi rapo nemo vayu kam. So we should study like this. Aham savasya prabhava. The sky is the greatest material thing, but he created it. In this way, study Krishna, not just studying Krishna with the gopis, then you will misunderstand. But the more you understand Krishna, the more you will become his staunch follower. Unauthorized persons never paint Krishna creating the sky. They always want to see Krishna dancing with the gopis, and in this way, they try to support their own lusty activities. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, that Canto 5, chapter number 7, text number 10. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Naranam Chanakalaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vatsam Tachavanamani Viderayat Nashtaparshu Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhakti Laistiki Om Gana Timhandasya Gananjana Sharakaya Chaksharam Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Mangam Mangaite Gurum Yat Kripata Mahamande Shri Gurum Dinitanam Vanchika Vachubhascha Kripa Sindhu Pyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yatra Shama Padanya Vayato Nabibir Trishat Chakranadi Nama Salit Pravara Savata Pravitri Karoti. Word for word. Yatra, where? Ashrama Padani, all hermitages. Ubayata, both on top and below. Na Bibi, like the symbolic mark of a navel. Drishat, visible. Chakrai, with the circles. Chakranadi, the Chakranadi river, generally known as the Gandaki. Nama, of the name. Surit Pravada, the most important river of all. Savata, everywhere. Pavitri Karoti, sanctifies. Translation. In Palasha Ashram is the Gandaki River, which is the best of all rivers. The Shalagram Shila, the marble pebbles, purify all those places. On each and every marble pebble, up and down, circles like navels are visible. Purple. Shalagam Shila refers to the pebbles that appear like stones with circles marked up and down. These are available in the river known as Gandaki Nadi. Wherever the waters of this river flow, the place becomes immediately sanctified. So, the translation again. In Pulaha Ashram is the Gandaki River, which is the best of all rivers. The Shalagram Shila, the marble pebbles, purify all those places. On each and every marble pebble, up and down, circles like navels are visible. So, as with everything, we see there's a history behind it, and nothing happens by chance. So similarly here, we have mention of the Gandaki River and Shalagram Shila, and in fact they are both intimately connected. The history goes that once upon a time there was a couple named Dharmatwaj and Madhvi who were wanting to have a child. And at the same time, Vrinda Devi, she was cursed by Radharani to take birth in the material world. And so this couple, they were blessed by Lakshmi Devi with her partial expansion to take birth in the womb of Madhavi, and also an expansion of Sri Radharani. So when this child was born, her beauty was so exquisite, and according to culture, they take their child to the sages for their name giving ceremony. And so because she was unmatched in her beauty and effulgence, the sages named her Tulsi Devi. Tulsi. So when she was born, her one pointed focus was to perform austerities to have Krishna as her husband. And these austerities she performed for 100,000 years. So just going back to why she was cursed, Krishna was enjoying with Vrinda Devi in the spiritual world, and when Radharani saw this, she became annoyed, being possessive of Krishna. So in this way, she got this curse. So she formed Tulsi Devi. As Tulsi, she performed these pastimes to have Krishna or Narayana as her husband. So at the end of this 100,000 years, her Brahma came to Tulsi and asked her for her benediction. And she told him, well, he told her of her transcendental past and how she came to the mid-material world, and she begged this boon to have Narayana as her husband. So at the same time, this Brahma told her that of Sudama, who was also cursed to be a demon by Radharani in the material world. And Sudama had this secret attraction for Tulsi that he didn't tell anyone about secret attraction for Vrinda Devi, but he was afraid to express because of fear of Srimati Radharani's wrath. So he was performing austerities also to have Vrinda Devi as his wife. So this is all told in the Skanda Purana, and it's been verified by Gopi Purana Das, and Kushikant Prabhu. And but then she said that she actually wanted two-handed Krishna as her husband, because he has 4 qualities that Narayan can never achieve, which is the unparalleled beauty that Krishna has, his beautiful flute playing, and his enchanting pastimes, and surrounded by loving devotees. So Lord Brahma gave her a mantra to chant to please Radharani, and she did perform this austerity, but chanted this prescribed mantra with all attention, faith, love, and devotion. So eventually, Lord Brahma, he benedicting him with his desire to be fulfilled, he told her where Tulsi Devi was, and they met, and after testing him, Tulsi married him, and they enjoyed for a very long time. It's a duration of a manvantar, which is many thousands of years. And as a demon, Shankachuta became very, very powerful, and this was due to Tulsi's chastity. She was so chaste that he could never be chaste to him, that this protected him from any defeat, even though he was a demon and took control of the universe. So eventually, the demigods wanted to gain back the universe, and they had approached Vishnu, and being favorable to the demigods, Lord Vishnu granted their desire and said that he would help them in the fight. So this messenger of war took place and visited Shankachuja, and but to give back the universe in a peaceful way, but Shankachuja refused and prepared to fight with the demigods. So the demigods knew of his of Tulsi's chastity, and how this could only be broken by and that only if it was broken, then only could Shankachuta be killed. So yeah, such a great battle. Even Kartikeya and Kali herself was fighting, and a lot of drama there, especially in the way that Kali was fighting. Her laughter would make the hearts of the demons crack in fear. Anyway, so they were fighting, and meanwhile, Krishna, disguised as Shankachuta, took the form of Shankachuta, and went to Tulsi's place of residence, and she greeted him as her husband, and they were intimately connected, engaged, and by that, Tulsi could see that doubts had appeared in her mind that this isn't her husband, and she became horrified and asked him, "Who are you?" And Krishna revealed himself, and she was so distraught that she cursed Krishna, unknowingly cursed him. And meanwhile, of course, Shankachuja was defeated and killed, and returned to the spiritual world. So then Tulsi Devi, on Krishna revealing himself, she just fainted. And but this wasn't before she cursed him. She said, "You're so stone-hearted that I'll curse you to be a stone." And Krishna accepted the curse, and he explained how you performed many austerities to have me as your husband, but being with Sankachuja for so many years, the length of a manvantar, you became so attached. But I've come here to fulfill your desire. And so she was. She said that he told her that she would become her body when she leaves this world. Her body would become the Gandaki River, and that her hair would become trees, and this is known as, and adopt the same name as her, which is Tulsi. So that's how Tulsi appeared in this world. And Sankachuja, apparently, his body became the conch shells of the world. So and so they were not, although the bone-like matter, they would be considered pure. So they're used in all forms of worship of Shalagram Shilas and deities in temples. So just as so with in the Gandaki, beside the Gandaki is the Annapurna mountain, and the rocks from this mountain fall into the Gandaki River, and these stones are shalagrams. There's by Krishna's arrangement, an insect called a Vrajakita carves into these stones, and by these markings, who's expert can ascertain which form of the Lord they represent. So there's so many called the Narayan Shilas, Lakshmi, Nrsimha Shilas, Damodar Shilas. Some are even forms of Lord Shiva. So yes, so with the present, so as Prabhupada says in the purport, wherever the waters of this river flow, the place becomes immediately sanctified, having washed over the bodies of these shalagrams, which are not different from the Lord himself. So much so that they don't need installation. Like in the temples, we see how the deity forms of the Lord there's the pure devotees invoke the presence of the Lord inside the deities so that the devotees may offer the worship to the Lord personally. So the Lord is pleased to accept this form, to receive the devotion of the devotees, of the congregation. Just as the Ganga River, Ganges, the Lord pierced the universe with his toe in the form of Amanadev, and by the contact of his lotus feet, then wherever her waters flow, everywhere is sanctified also. So Prabhupada recommended that when the devotees were qualified enough, he brought in the worship of shalagrams, and they were to be worshipped and bathed as the large deities couldn't have the full bathing ceremony, so the shalagram shilas would be offered that worship and this would be considered offering that worship to the larger deities. So in this way, they would be considered Krishna rather than Narayan. So it's general practice for, it's a Brahminical worship, general practice for Brahmins to take. So when we worship Shalagram, where, as I said, it's its primary purpose and meditation during that worship is worship of Krishna to increase our Krishna consciousness. And the example of this is Radharaman deity in Vrindavan. All the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, they all worshipped Radha Krishna deities, and where they could give them a vesh, cloth, nice clothing, decorated jewelry, and so on. And so Gopal Bhatta Goswami had a Shila, and he was desiring in his heart to worship the Lord in this way. Incidentally, all the Goswamis, along with their Radha Krishna worship, they all had shalagrams also. And then to reciprocate with Gopal Bhatta Goswami's desire, one day he came to worship the Lord in his shalagram form, but the shalagram had manifested itself in a threefold bending form as Krishna. So it says how this is the most perfect form of the Lord that is worshipped. So in this way, as keeping Prabhupada was in asking the devotees to accept him as Krishna, and then as in this way, he would ask them to make sure that he had a flute. So if you see on the altar, we have Giriraj and Shalagram Srila Tulsinath, both given a flute. So it's a very high form of worship. One has to be, as I said, it's a Brahminical form of worship, and that because there are many offences to be made that one can make in that worship. So one has to be pure in habits and pure in that, like for example, one should never hold a Shalagrim Shila and lie, otherwise one stays in the material world for the length of the sun and the moon. Things like this. There's so many offenses. There's so many benedictions as well. So in this way, it's and also one has to be careful to make sure that the worship of Shalagram continues after one's own death. If one's performing Shalagram worship, so in this way, it's not just a lifetime activity, but goes beyond that. So traditionally in India, many Brahminical families have deity worship as their standard form of worship for generations. And so in this way, it's passed down to the next generation to continue the worship. I was just hearing how in one family, the wife was devoted to the worship of the Shalagram, and the rest of the family, if they didn't appear to take darshan, they would pay a fine. So seriously, she took that worship. So for the rest of us who may not be on the platform of worshipping shalagrams or may have any doubt, then one can have the same benefit everyone can have the same benefit in the worship of Gaur Nitai. they're so merciful that their worship is very simple. It could be just incense and kirtan, especially kirtan. We win their favor and get the same benefit as the worship of Shalagram, but without the fear of making so many offenses. They're very, very merciful, but at the same time, of course, one shouldn't worship them with the view of being able to do anything and consider it worship, because then one may find that the reaction may be in the form of a lack of enthusiasm for their worship. In this way, they become aloof to that devotee. So I'll stop there, and if there are no questions, I'll finish there. I'll just see. Kanchana Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, ISKCON Gurumati ki jai, Shishiko Nitai Mai Prashashi ki jai, Shri Tosanath Maharaj ki jai, Shri Giridhar Lal ki jai, Shri Nrsimhadev Bhagavan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Haribo.